Hi everybody, so today I wanted to do a video just really explaining all that there is about foundation. Now, I know that foundation is something that not everybody likes to wear, not necessarily is needed, and you know, there are a lot of tricks that go into it and a lot of things that you really have to look out for when buying, purchasing, trying out, you know, different foundations. You really want to find one that will work really well for you. Now, there's no such thing as the perfect foundation for anybody out there. You can find one that works really well, but you'll always find that one little thing that, you know, you wish you could improve on. But I'm just going to give you some tips on how to pick out the best foundation for you, for your skin type, and for your, you know, needs. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start off. I have it all listed down so I don't forget anything, and I'm gonna start off with coverage. There are three-ish kind of different coverage levels, but it does vary, so you can be in between two of the levels, but the basic levels are light/sheer coverage, medium coverage, and full coverage. Light coverage really does just, you know, even out your skin tone. It's more like a tinted moisturizer. Tinted moisturizers I would consider a foundation since it does go all over your skin, but light coverage tends to be something that if you have pretty clear skin already, you just want to give some more life, some color back into your skin. You want to make your skin look slightly more even, but you don't have much to cover. Medium coverage is where you may have slight redness, maybe slight discoloration, but nothing too intense that you need heavy coverage for, or if you are planning on just using a heavier coverage concealer. And then full coverage, I personally don't think there is such thing as a full coverage foundation. I personally think that full coverage liquid foundations or powder foundations that you would consider full coverage are more, they just cover the majority of problems on your skin that you will tend to still need to go in with concealer, but maybe not as much as you would if you were using a light or medium coverage foundation. Now, I personally find that if you have a lot of blemishes, you might want to go for more of a medium to full coverage. I tend to say medium to full, light to medium, things like that, because I don't think that one particular foundation really goes into one category, because on me, one foundation can be a medium coverage, but on you, with more issues that you have, more skin issues, you may find that it's more of just a light to medium coverage. So personally, those are just, you know, general idea of the coverage levels that you can find in foundations, but not necessarily the exact level. And it doesn't normally say it. It will say, you know, around a medium coverage, but you do have to take into consideration the problems that you have with your skin and things like that, such as what you want to cover. The next thing is the finish, and I personally, again, have three separate things. One is dewy, one is satin or demi-matte, and then the other one is matte. Dewy is that very luminous, very glowy, you know, natural, very youthful looking skin. Personally works best on dry to normal skin types. If you have oily or combination skin, you might find that it breaks down really easily on your skin. There are some dewy foundations that are long wearing on certain skin types, but again, I find that they work best on dry to normal skin. Satin or demi-matte is more of it has more of a matte texture than a dewy finish. It tends to last longer if you have more oily or combination skin than a dewy finish foundation, but it's not necessarily the flat matte. Like if you've ever tried Revlon Color Stay, Estee Lauder Double Wear, anything that's just a flat matte, no, you know, luminosity, no real dimension to it whatsoever, I find that satin and demi-matte finishes are the most natural, because you don't have like dewy, glossy skin naturally. You do have a nice sheen, but nothing that's very, you know, out there and just blaring glossiness. So I do find that satin finishes are the most natural. So if you do want to go for a more natural finish, I tend to say go for the more satin, more demi-matte finishes, because they tend to look more natural and more like skin. And then the matte finish, as you probably know, is no shimmer, no glossiness, no oiliness. It's just straight, flat, matte, just pigment. So it works better for oily skin types. I personally find that matte finish foundations don't really look well on any skin type. I just find that matte finishes, they don't have any dimension. They make you look flat. They don't really look that nice on skin. But people who have oily skin tend to find that the matte finish foundations throughout the day will look more satin and demi-matte. So if you are looking to wear your foundation for a long period of time, you may want to go, you know, more of the matte end of the spectrum, and then it will start to get more dewy throughout the day as, you know, the oils in your skin break it down. The next one is formula. Now there are three basic formulas that I would like to go over, which is the liquid, cream, and powder. Powder tends to be for more oily skin types. Cream can be for people dry to oily that just want a fuller coverage. And then liquid tends to be for if you want light to medium coverage and you have any range of skin type. And those can come in oil-based, water-based, or wax-based. Wax-based I heard works best on oily skin. Water-based works best on like just any type of skin, and then oil-based can work best on dry skin. I find that liquid foundations tend to be more of the light to medium opaque coverage. They're not necessarily full coverage because I don't find that any liquid foundation really covers the majority of your flaws, but they do even out your skin tone, take down redness, discoloration pretty well. You do tend to have to go in with a separate concealer when using a liquid foundation. Cream foundations tend to be the more medium to full coverage. You can sheer them down to be more of a sheer coverage, but I find that most people who use cream foundations like them because they tend to look more like skin just because of the texture that they are, and also just because they do offer a variety of different coverages. So it does work well for somebody who maybe wants a light coverage for every day but needs that extra coverage when they want to go out for special occasions, they want to go out at night, things like that. And then powder foundation I don't recommend for anybody just because I find that too much powder on your skin just dries it out. I don't think that it's something you should be wearing every day. I find that the extra little bit of moisture, even if you have oily skin, just does help keep your skin a little bit more supple throughout the day. And I find that, you know, if you have like a powder foundation, if that starts to break down, you can't touch up, you can't, you know, really fix it. It starts to get crackly looking. I personally don't like it. I know a lot of people do. I think if you want to use the powder foundation, do a light finish of a liquid or cream foundation and then go in the areas that you need it with a bit of the powder foundation, which will give you extra coverage, but will add that little moisture back with the liquid foundation underneath. I hope that makes sense. And then the next two things are application and color. The first thing is application. There are so many different ways that you can apply foundations. I have listed sponges, your fingers, kabuki brushes, which are like the flat top brushes, the Sigmax brushes by Sigma, things like that that are more dense that you can really buff into your skin, stippling brushes, which are like the skunk brushes, the dual fiber brushes, and then the standard flat brush, which looks, if I can, let me just grab mine so you can see. The ones that just are the standard brushes that you automatically think of when you think of foundation. These I don't personally like for foundation. I use these to apply a highlight or apply foundation all over my skin before stippling it out and buffing it through. Personally, my favorite methods are a sponge or kabuki brushes. I find that stippling brushes, although they're nice, they don't buff it into my skin as well. If you have drier skin, a sponge or your fingers works best. Normal skin, a stippling brush, a kabuki brush, or a flat brush works, as well as the sponge in your fingers. And then for oily skin, you can really use any of them. I personally find if you want more of a heavy coverage, go with a kabuki brush or a sponge. If you want a lighter coverage, your fingers, stippling brushes, those types of brushes works a lot better just because they shear out the product a bit more, or just make sure you really dampen your sponge before you apply it. That will help give you a sheer coverage, although I do find that sponges can give you a very full coverage, and also a very even coverage. So if you want an even coverage all over, go for a sponge and make sure you just, you know, wring out all the water before you start, just because I find that, you know, just a slightly damp sponge can give you the fullest coverage out of any foundation. And then the last one is color. The three separate color ranges are cool, warm, and neutral. Now, color I personally think of is as undertone, not necessarily as the shade of your skin. The shade of your skin is different from your undertone. Your undertone can be cool, warm, or neutral. Neutral means you have a very good balance of pink and yellow undertones. If you have cool undertones, that means you have more pink undertones or more pink in your skin. And then if you have warm undertones, means you have more yellow in your skin or more like orangey based colors in your skin. I personally find that if you are going to be using, you know, a foundation that's very yellow, sometimes it can come off too yellow, so you do want to make sure that you go over it with a neutral powder. I find that the best way is to just find a neutral powder, nothing too yellow, nothing too pink, and that will help balance out any foundations, because I find that some foundations can go too yellow or too pink and they never really have a happy medium. But undertones, you can find people say by looking at the colors of your veins. You can just like look at your skin, whichever one is more prominent. If gold or silver jewelry looks best on on you. There's so many different ways to figure out your undertone. My personal way is if it doesn't come out right at you, like me personally, you can see all the yellow and like brown in my skin. If you personally can't just see it right away, go into a counter and have them, you know, match you to one of their foundations. Whichever one it says, if it's more pink or more yellow, then you know which one you are, because sometimes it is good to get a, you know, another person's eye to see what type of undertones you have. I personally find that I have yellow undertones, but sometimes foundations can come off too yellow and then they end up looking orange throughout the day. So if you do find that your foundation just leans too much to one side of the spectrum, go for more of a neutral foundation and really buff it in, because I find that those tend to look the most natural anyway, even if you lean towards one side of the spectrum, just because, you know, one can start oxidizing a little oddly on your skin. And I personally find that if I have a very yellow foundation on my skin throughout the day, it just looks orange and it looks too dark. And even if it looked fine at the beginning of the day, the yellow pigment just doesn't look right and doesn't settle right on my skin. So if you do have a pink or a yellow undertone, try to go for something that's more neutral. Try not to go for those ones that are very, very dark yellow, very, very dark pink, because you will find that it doesn't settle right on your skin even if you have those undertones. And then again, just try using a neutral powder that will help balance it out and even it out. And then also another tip is to just use a lighter powder, so that throughout the day when the oils start coming through and oxidizing the powder doesn't end up darker than your skin, leaving you with that orangey cast. And then shade of your skin, you really will have to look for which foundation you're looking at, because those vary depending on what brand, what type of foundation you're looking at. So it really does vary, but you know, obviously if you're very dark, you're not going to be using a white foundation, and if you're very light, you're not going to be using like an NC40 from MAC. So you do want to go in, get a shade that's very close to your skin. Best bet, go to a drugstore. If you have a foundation you like in a drugstore, buy both of them, mix them together, and then make your perfect shade. If you can't, try to find one that is a shade or two, depending on what brand of foundation you might find that is a little bit too light for you. Go with the lighter shade, because what you can always do is go in with a bit of a darker powder or a bit of bronzer, which will help, you know, bronze it up, make it look slightly darker and match your skin tone a little bit better. Plus it will also give you that Kim Kardashian kind of look if you're into that, with the very highlighted center of your face, and then with the bronzers it will kind of give you more of a sculpted look. So I hope that helped you all. I know that that was a lot of information to squeeze into this amount of time. If you have any other questions, don't forget to leave a comment below. I will answer them to the best of my ability. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed it again, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye everybody.